there's just a good chance you're not going to be able to hire the engineers you want to be able to hire. There's no magic bullet. There's nothing that you can do to solve this problem other than, you can, continue to pound the pavement and try to find new engineers. But at the end of the day, the numbers aren't there. I don't think you're going to get to the number you want. And so I think that's unfortunately, there's just no easy solution to this. The nice part about these older technologies is that when you find these teams, they're usually really, really deep experts on those particular stacks. So if you find a team anywhere in the world that is specializing in Rails or Django, you're going to find teams that are they really know their stuff about those stacks because that's all they've been doing. The newer stacks, I find it's a little bit harder to hire for. They have to keep up with the newest technology. They're typically being pulled in multiple directions. So they are spread thin by default because they are outsourcers. So typically they will spread, one client will be using a piece of technology and they'll see a limited amount of depth there versus another client. And so they never really get deep. As far as, near shore versus farther offshore, it is really handy to be on the same time zone. I mean, obviously, I think anybody who's worked with a team remote, that's a far, it's a good chunk of time zones away. It gets really painful to schedule those things. I would kind of place it as I don't have any concerns if they're a long way away. If the problem you're trying to solve is very compartmentalized. You really do have to step back and evaluate exactly what it is you need to build. And I'd say to buy the rest, I mean, that can be outsourcing, that can be, using off-the-shelf tools. Ideally, off-the-shelf tools is the best solution there, but it's really figuring out what your company is in the business of making that you need to specialize on. Nobody likes to hear this, but hire replaceable, interchangeable engineers. The fact of the matter is, if you have this idea of getting a 10x engineer, what you're going to likely wind up with is somebody who does a lot of customization that's hard for somebody to come back in and quickly learn. So this is where, I default to companies pointing them at older frameworks, even if it's Django and Rails. Those are two frameworks that I think, they certainly are long in the tooth, but I can go out and hire an engineer to come into a code base that has been written in either of those frameworks. I'll also include, some C# in that if you're outside the Bay Area. The fact of the matter is I can hire an engineer to come in and look at that code base and give me both an idea as to the quality of the code and also how they can quickly add features. If I take that same code base from a modern startup today, from what I'm seeing, it can be weeks to get deep into that code base where they're using tools that are, either poorly supported or do not have great, there's just a lot of tools out there. And so you find teams making poor decisions early on. So new grad can be great. I think that the real risk with new grad is they won't have a ton of depth on well, it depends. Sometimes you'll find a new grad who's really, really deep into one stack and they're great. I think those are the ones that I would bias towards hiring. If they come out of it and they say, look, like I am the React expert at this, and here's how, here's my portfolio and here's what I've done. I think that's amazing. There's the more spread thin where they've kind of come out and they've got a good fundamental understanding of CS. They're great. I think at a startup, it's hard because they're not strongly opinionated, or they're not really good at evaluating sort of like making technical decisions yet. Or if they are, they can be intimidated by another engineer and make poor decisions. I think you want a little bit more opinionated out of the gate. It's sometimes easier to hire engineering managers just because it's a little bit more, you typically have a little bit more experience, right? And so sometimes you can find somebody who's it's very easy to judge where they're at in their career and if they like being a manager because they've been doing it for several years. And then you can kind of talk to their direct reports, hopefully, and you can get an idea of just how good they are.